Welcome to Fitch Painting Repairs Garage. Today's project, we've got this Suzuki TL1000R back. Last time we had it for an electrical no start issue. Turned out it was a pin connector up in the forward wire bundle on the left side of the handlebars. We did a wire repair on that, and we've got it back. Customer wants to sell the machine. It's not as, his dream, so he wants to go ahead and sell it. He had a customer or a potential buyer come by and test ride the bike, and when brought it back, it was puking oil. And so we've looked into it a little bit and done some research and went on some forums and talked chat rooms and stuff, and got a little insight into this particular bike. If you don't work on everything, four-stroke motors and systems are all similar, but each bike has its own characteristic nature due to design and whatnot and the type of riding that the bike is used to doing. So he said, it leaked a little oil the whole time he had it. Whenever he rode it, he brought it back and noticed a couple drips of oil. When I did the electrical and pulled the body panels off, I had found that the stator cover and the clutch cover bolts were a little loose. So somebody probably been in there and done some work. Gaskets need to be pulled and replaced, probably, just some seepage and oil issues, but I do believe we're going to end up pulling the gas tank off of this and getting into the air box and getting into the crankcase ventilation system. From what I found, that is a notorious problem with this bike. Not every single one of them does it, but the majority of them do it at some point, and it's when you ride them aggressively at high RPMs, it produces a lot of crankcase pressure, and with that creates a lot of oil mist. So we're going to investigate that myth or that theory, and we're going to go into that system and see if that's where the oil is. But what we're going to do is, we've got an idea on what to look for, but keeping an open mind as we do a disassembly. We're just looking for the signs of where the oil is coming from. Doesn't necessarily mean it is coming from the crankcase ventilation system. It could be coming from a crack or a hole in the case. I've had that happen before too. And you're looking at the whole bike and you're going over it and you're going over it and you're like, what the hell, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's the obvious problem. So we're going to do a good investigative diagnostic situation on the bike. We're going to go through it. We're going to test ride the motorcycle. I have the customer's permission to take the machine out and try to recreate the conditions. So that means I'm gonna hit the highway, and I'm gonna be lane splitting, and I'm gonna hit the back curvy road, and I'm gonna be carving the curves, and then I'm gonna bring her back, and during that time I'll stop every 10-15 minutes or so of ride time, check for oil leaks and see if I can spot anything. But I'm gonna do it naked. I'm gonna strip off the body panel so I can see the engine when I do it. I'm just gonna have the lower skid plate panel removed. This side's already got the body panel removed. It's up there on the shelf. I'll do the same on the other, and then there's a front clip plate that needs to come off, and so we'll pull all that stuff off. Yeah, see that thing down there's got to come off, and then this other side's going to come off. That way I can see this thing. Get up in there, see, because this the plastics cover everything. You really can't see. But we got to get to the crankcase ventilation system and check the hose and make sure there's no pinch. Look inside the air box, which is located here underneath the tank. And then we'll go through that system. From what I understand is, if you find a lot of oil in your air box, then that's probably what's happened. She's just puking a lot of oil, and all bikes do it. All bikes do it. Some bikes just do it a lot more than others. What we've got is oil coming down here and dripping down onto the body and then running out onto the ground. We might even have a little tiny seepage. Yeah, a little tiny seepage coming off. So we got to get up in there and we got to find all, the hoses and all the connection points and look into the air box. And if the air box is full of oil, then she's puking oil like crazy. And what we need to do is it could be as simple as the fact that this thing is pretty full on oil, and it is recommended, from what I understand, to run these things down low on the sight glass when you fill them up with oil. You know, because when you aggressively ride, it produces a lot of crankcase pressure on inside this motor, and it pushes up that volume of oil mist up into the intake, and then it starts blowing oil all over the place out the intake manifolds. You know, can cause all kinds of problems, cause called valve issues and all that stuff. So you definitely going to want to look into this, and you know, there's a few options we could do to stop all that oil. We could even go the route of doing a catch can on the crankcase. You know, put a filter system in. I've done one on my Dyna. Let me show you guys what I done on my Dyna. And what I done was I used this piece down here. Right there. Alright. That's this thing right here. And crankcase comes off this tube down into this filter, and it catches your oil, and you can drain it out. This unscrews, and there's a tiny little filter in there, and what happens is that oil drains down in. It bleeds out. Now this one I'm gonna have to redo it because it's not working quite right, because we're getting some blowout on the other side where it vents out, and I'm catching a lot of oil, you know, all over the front of the carburetor, which catches dirt and all that. So I got to figure out a better filter inside, you know, to keep that from doing that, but allow the pressure out. So we could do that, something similar to this on there, but you got to let that pressure out, because if you just route that crankcase hose into a sealed container that doesn't have a vent, it'll blow it apart, or it'll cause it to run rough, you know, because it builds up too much pressure. She'll end up blowing oil out the exhaust, or it'll start smoking. So you got to vent that crankcase pressure. You can't just plug that hole. So we're going to go through all the tubing, all the system on the crankcase ventilation. Meanwhile, while we're tearing it down, paying close attention to where the oil trail's coming from. And then we're going to take her out and aggressively ride it to see if our theory on the crankcase ventilation thing is what the problem is. And then we'll come back and we'll go through it again, and then return to the customer. Hopefully we can do it without a whole lot of time involved and a whole lot of money to do the repair. But you know, oil leaks could come from anywhere, man. You know, it could be a hole in the case, could be a blown up engine, could be a leaking base gasket, a head gasket, could be this cover's leaking, could be that this cover's leaking, all of which, you know, have seals, you know, prevention. So we'll go through it. Stay tuned. I'll have an update.